And welcome into our first player interview of 2025 and our Tiger Minor League Report series. As we've thank you for everybody who's tuned in or sent in a donation the last few weeks or so. We had a gentleman by the name of Dwight who sent in a very nice donation. So thank you so much for supporting our work. And tonight, our guest is Lael Lockhart Jr., who led the Tigers last year, minor leagues in strikeouts. Lael, welcome, and good to have you. Good to talk to you again. And how was your off season? How are things?
It was great, pretty laid back. Spent some time back at University of Arkansas training for a little bit, and then went full time out to Oklahoma City. Trained with a bunch of Tigers down there, had a blast, and learned a lot.
Nice, yeah. I mean, so you're our returning champion here. We talked to you about 2 years ago. There in the Erie batting cages, and I think you had been with Erie for about 2 months at the time. And I remember because we caught your start the night before, and you had just started throwing the splitter, I think. And it's just kind of fascinating to me that that was something you even told us you didn't have a feel for it yet. And then last year you're using it and it's got like a 45-50% whiff rate on it. So I don't know if you could talk to us about the journey of developing that pitch.
Yeah, so I mean, for whenever I was with the Dodgers and before I got traded over, they really tried really hard to develop a changeup. And it was a pitch that I was never incredibly comfortable with. And then even when I first got here with the Tigers, we were trying to develop something that faded arm side. And the changeup to me, we've tried every grip and every cue, every toy you can imagine to figure out how to make the ball fade arm side. And it was just something I couldn't pick up on. And so we finally went to what can we kind of throw that replicates like what we're looking for. And it just happened to be a splitter. And I tried all the grips under the sun. And then eventually it just came down to let's just go full split, like traditional across the baseball as wide as you can, basically a fork ball, and just keep ripping it. And so it's a crazy grip to just naturally pick up and throw, and it takes a long time to develop feel with it, and especially at just game speed to try and land it in zone and then develop it to where you can go in zone, out of zone, bury away or bury down. It took a long time, but I think the turning point where I really turned the corner with it, when y'all saw it, I was kind of spraying it all over the place in Erie. It was a tough pitch for me to figure out. And then once I got to Toledo, I credit Dylan Dingler a lot with this and the pitching coaches there. They forced me to be good with it. They would call it religiously. Anytime I was ahead in the count, it got called. Now, it was very frustrating at the beginning because I would start to fall behind in counts and lose hitters, walk more guys than normal. But that's where the development side of minor league baseball comes in. And they were like, hey, like you walks might skyrocket a little bit just with this pitch and your zone rate. But let's look at the end goal here and look down the tunnel. Like if you figure this pitch out, it's going to play massive for you. And it started to turn that corner when I got there. It was just forced to throw it.
Yeah, I mean that's fascinating too because people can see the stats, right, but they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And you see the walk rate is higher, and part of that I think is attributed to whatever was going on in AAA with the ABS system, and it's like everybody's walk rate was skyrocketing too. But it's really fascinating to hear that they were making you throw this pitch that just so you could develop it. And one other thing we've heard a bunch of times that the baseball is actually different between AA and AAA. Is that true?
Yeah. So the minor league. So you play with two different baseballs in the minor leagues. It used to be a little bit different a year ago. And whenever I was with LA in the Texas League, which is AA down there, we were playing with a Major League Baseball. So AA in the Texas League was the only league that would use the big league ball. But whenever I got traded over to Erie, you get switched back to the minor league baseball, was a little bit softer, a little bit squishier. And then when you pick up the Major League Baseball, when you get to Toledo, your metrics change a little bit just because the ball is different. Mm-hmm. And that's the one the big boys are playing with at the ultimate level. So you want to be playing with that baseball and kind of get the normal metrics. But at the end of the day, it is two different baseballs. Metrics change, even though they kind of feel a little bit similar. It's a big difference when you're talking about 5 inches of a vertical break up or down.
Yeah. Is it because in the Texas League is because the environment's a little different? Is that why they use a heavier ball? Because I mean, I know it's more of like a hitter friendly league, correct? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hitter friendly for sure. I think it's the same way with the other AAA league that's over there, which is like Albuquerque, OKC, that whole side of the US. But I couldn't, I think it was just a one-off. I'm not sure if the Texas League did it again last year, but I just remember using a big league ball there in the Texas League, got switched to the Eastern League with Erie, went to the first day, went to the ball bag, and it was a minor league baseball. And I haven't thrown that in a year or two. So completely different feels. And then you get back to Toledo and you're throwing with a big league ball. But just having a consistent baseball was a major thing in development just for feel for that pitch.
Yeah, I would imagine. We've seen some of the balls that get used in the lower levels that they're all cockeyed and stuff. But so you got the split now and you dialed in pretty nicely. And then you also throw a slider, a curve, and just a traditional four-seamer, or you got a two-seamer?
So as of this year, this offseason, it is a four-seam, a sinker, a cutter, a spike curveball, and a splitter.
Is the spike curve new? Or is that the one you've been throwing?
That's what I've been throwing.
Okay.
It's what I spike curve. If you want to get incredibly technical with it, I spike my pointer finger on it, and it's how I've always thrown it since I was a kid.
Gotcha. And then so what I called a slider is more of a cutter.
So they want me to get it to more of a cutter profile, and I can shape that pitch. It's probably my best shape pitch for me that I have feel for, just being a supinator as is, and I can throw it hard. So it's kind of something that'll get shaped hitter to hitter. It might have slider numbers to one guy versus the next guy. I want a little bit more ride and keep it at the top of the zone. That's where we'll call it a cutter. So it's kind of a blended pitch at this point.
Yeah, that's always fascinating to me. The guys who supinate and can't pronate. I don't know if I could do either. But like Scooble talked about that, he can't pronate, so he had to come up with his unique changeup grip. It's kind of a seam shifted changeup, I think. It just kind of along the lines that you tried every changeup there is, and it was finally just split it. And I think Scooble tried the split too a couple of years back. And it's always fun to hear these stories about some things work for some guys and they just don't for others. And it must be nice now to have all the data so you can really work on it. But back in the day, it was just kind of, I guess you would just throw with somebody and ask them what they thought.
Yeah, it's really cool to have the numbers and get the feedback, especially when you're developing a pitch that you're going into the off season saying, hey, I want to break this in. I know a lot of guys now are going with like kick changes or the new sweeper of baseball, and everybody's trying to figure that pitch out. And having the metrics and having all the numbers when you're going into a pitch design session is massive because, talking with Alan Trammell the other day and kind of picking his brain, I think his biggest pet peeve is when hitters just look straight down to the iPad as the reliever's warming up 60 feet away from them on the mound. So, it's a great tool to have, but sometimes guys can get lost in it. And it is what it is.
So when you got to Toledo last year, in terms of the adjustment of hitters, comparatively speaking to Erie, how much of that was an adjustment as you're continuing to work on your pitch mix, getting that new ball or getting the Major League Baseball back in there? How much of the difference in terms of the quality of hitters was there? Because sometimes we get in these debates that people are saying that Erie, or AA and AAA are similar, but I just think it varies on the league, really.
Yeah, so it's the largest consistent jump that I've seen from all the levels all the way through. And I think the biggest thing that guys kind of figure out is getting those AAA hitters and the guys that are kind of up and down in that 4A role where they're just optioning back and forth, is getting AAA hitters into swing mode. They won't chase if it's not their count to get a swing off. Like they are looking to do damage and they're looking in a zone or a tunnel. And if you don't throw it in that tunnel, they're really good about playing the odds of, he's still got to throw me 2 more strikes. And getting guys into swing mode is the most difficult thing I've had to adjust to, because AA down, you could kind of just throw anything that had great movement and guys would swing out of it regardless of the count. Now it's, hey, if you throw an amazing slider or a changeup in the zone or a little bit down, they'll just take it because they don't want to swing at anything off speed until they get, let's say, 1 strike or they're in a hitter's count. So that adjustment of throwing your best stuff in the zone and then recognizing, hey, they're kind of in swing mode now, I can expand and go out. That situational awareness and swing awareness took a few starts to figure out for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, you're presumably down in Lakeland right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have any I don't know if they tell you this, but are you going to get into any of these games? They're going to bring you across the street, so to speak.
So I was supposed to throw the other day, but we had a rain out, which I was told was the first rain out in 10 years or something insane.
Yeah.
So my parents actually flew in for that. They were going to watch. And then I texted them that morning. I go, hey, thank y'all for trying to surprise me, but game's canceled. Let's go get lunch and dinner and hang out.
Well, that's nice.
Actually scheduled to back up tomorrow at home. I can't remember exactly who we're playing. I think it's maybe the Red Sox. So backing up tomorrow, we'll hopefully get in there and throw well.
Nice.
So you had the full seat. I mean, in terms of putting the work, obviously you talk about and being in Oklahoma with the rest of those Tiger pitchers. What's the next step in your development? Because with the certain aspects, whether it's command, sequencing, or refining pitches that you're really looking forward to for this upcoming season, or really trying to work on?
So for me, I would say it's definitely controlling the cutter slider and just staying ahead of guys 24/7. That is my cup of tea. When I get ahead of guys, I can pitch deep into games and kind of let the bullpen necessarily rest and recover and come back, and you can throw your lockdown guys towards the end of the 7th, 8th, 9th. So I would say the big refinement for me, or like the next step forward, is just holding and maintaining velo. Like, I'm never going to be the guy that's 97 to 100 as much as I wish I was Scoobs and Jobs and all of these guys that are throwing fuel deep into games. That's just not who I am. I know I'm a guy that can go out there, give you 5-6 innings, keep the team in it. And, I like to have fun when I'm doing that sometimes. I talk a little bit of trash. It's fun. It's baseball. It's a game at the end of the day. But the next step for me is just holding velo throughout the season and just keeping that velo in games for 120 pitches or whatever the team needs.
Yeah, and so one of the interesting things, last year, the Tigers basically called up everybody from Toledo. It must have gotten kind of lonely in the locker room down there. And I'm, you're a professional athlete. Mm-hmm. Were you disappointed that you didn't get a call? Were you hoping? Did they communicate with you at all? Like, hey, this is what we might need you for, or was it just kind of, stay the course?
It's a little bit of stay the course. Like, of course, as an athlete, like very selfishly, you always want that phone call to be for you. And you kind of start to play GM, you look around and you're kind of playing the math in your head. But you come up with so many of these guys. And so like Ty, Brant, you go down the list of guys I was hanging out with, Job, and you see these guys just come to Toledo, throw, and then they go to the big leagues and they come back and you talk to them. It is hyper motivating to get there and be with the guys, and you see the Tigers start to go on this run at the end, and there's nowhere else you would rather be than in Detroit playing meaningful baseball at the end of the year. The stories you hear from those guys when they come back it's some of the most fun, and it gives me like chills talking about, of meaningful, fun baseball, packed stadiums. It's where you want to be. So it is definitely motivating, to say the least.
The first question I asked Brent Herter last year when I got in the locker room, like, the championship of the Erie, does anything compare? He's like, no. He's like, no way. It was like, he's like, no way. And I mean, like, the whole excitement with that, but then, it's amplified 100 times, and sure, it was very motivating for you. And last year, I think the biggest thing that stood out about was impressive is that your ability to then make those adjustments when you got to Toledo. And to me, I think it was a good sign of things to come. As far as like just getting out there, and it seems like you're more comfortable with the starter as a starter versus a reliever. It's the same thing. So you're prepared for any role the Tigers are going to give you, essentially, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my job at the end of the day is starter, reliever. The job is pitcher. Like, I am a pitcher. It doesn't matter if it's the 9th inning, the 1st inning, the 5th, anywhere in between. Now, I definitely have more comfortability as a starter, just the nature of the beast. It's what I've done since college. I haven't done much out of the bullpen. And when I do come out of the bullpen, it's maybe 1 or 2 outings and it's back to a starting role. So I haven't necessarily developed like the perfect routine that guys have after doing it their whole careers. So I am looking forward to whatever role I do get thrown in that eventually helps the big league team. I'm all for. Y'all saw it last year where guys get called up and are thrown in completely different roles. And I mean, I've had phone calls with coordinators here where, you're in every different role, and it's like, what are you? Like, what am I to this team? And at the end of the day, you're a pitcher. Like, that's what you are. You're there to go execute pitches, get outs, put zeros on the board, and walk back into the dugout. Now, does your routine change a little bit before you do it? Yeah, but you're still playing the same game when you step on the mound.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it's got to be really hard to if you're going back and forth to really like all the work you do in between outings.
Mhm.
It's got to throw that out of whack. Um,
Mhm.
we threw a bunch of, or we told our people in our Discord that we were talking to you, and they asked wanted us to ask some questions, and it seemed like mostly they wanted to know what the difference was between the Tigers and the Dodgers in terms of development in the minor league system and so forth.
So with LA, it's the biggest difference I've kind of noticed. So whenever I got drafted by LA, it was Gabe Ribas was there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first guy when I showed up and we had our draft camp. Like Ribas was the guy running the camp. So once he left and it was the new regime that's in there, it's the biggest difference I kind of noticed is there's more coordinators and people that are there to help develop and put ideas out there and kind of brainstorm together. And that's great to an extent. Now you can throw so much stuff at a guy and where he gets lost and he's hearing too many voices trying to help him. And there's a little bit of inconsistency with that at times where you have so much information coming in. You as the player, you want to be coachable, and guys almost are too coachable where they take a little bit from everybody and there's no true consistency of their routine over the course of a month or two, and guys kind of get lost in the sauce, to nicely put it.
Mm-hmm.
And versus you come to the Tigers, you sit down, you have a very structured plan, and you talk it through very detailed as to how we're going to go about this, and everybody's on the same page because there's not so many people on that page. It's the people that are here are high quality, and they're all very driven to be on that same goal to maximize the player on the minor league side to help the big league team win baseball games. And you can kind of see that this last year where guys are going up to the big leagues and they're helping, and the development happens really fast because guys are on the straight and narrow running down the path, and the coordinators here keep guys on that path.
Within those plans, like how much tolerance is there for your input? Like you go, I'll try that, but I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
Something
no,
like that.
Sure, for sure. So it's at the end of the day, it is your career. Like
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. You can fight back as much as you want to and as much as you think you need to. Now, they will never bring up something that they don't think hasn't been thought through and through and hasn't been brought through the data team, coordinators, strength staff, medical team. If they're bringing it to you, it's pretty well thought through. There's not much just, oh, let me just think about it and tell him. That hardly ever happens. So when they do bring something to you, it's very well thought through.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, considering that we talked to Harris back in early January, he basically said that he watched the games every night in the minor leagues, and you can almost tell verbatim like some of the starts and those kind of things. And final question for you, Lyle. What's a dog's name back there in Oklahoma that's roaming around in the cages? Because I see this dog all the time. My wife was asking me, she sees the dog and she's like, what is that dog? The dog's awesome.
Oh my gosh. They're going to kill me now. They're going to kill me. There's so many dogs. Like y'all don't see the other dogs, which is the best part. So you have so the guy who runs the place, his name is Alex Marney, and great dude, loves dogs through and through. And so you'll see the little dog in the video in the back is running back and forth, and I can't remember his name for the life of me. And all of these guys are going to blow me up on it. And of course, right when I get out of here, I'll figure it out. But there's 2 more wiener dogs in the back, and then there's another one of the dog that you see running back and forth that are all in the front office. So in that facility, there's 4 dogs running around the whole time. And it's a lot of fun, and it definitely acts like a stand-in hitter at times. It's a little bit stressful. Sometimes it gets annoying with the dog, but it keeps it fun. It keeps it light. It's a really fun place to go trade.
Yeah, all the comments are always just like, "Oh, the dog." And the first thing my wife noticed was I'm sitting there looking at the velocity and all that, and she goes, "Oh, you see that dog?" And then after that, I couldn't stop seeing the dog. But that's awesome.
Yeah, but that's that. Yeah, I remember seeing that. I caught the name too. It was like Daisy or something like that. But yeah, they had a whole like a super cut of all the dog running back and forth. It seemed like there's a lot of
Bailey. It's Nate.
Bailey?
His name is Bailey. I want to say it's a he, but Bailey is running around. I think Bailey's maybe 8 or 9 years old, and the only thing that thing cares for is yellow plyo balls and baseballs. It's all it wants to eat the whole day. So it's
Good
great.
exercise. But it seemed like there were a bunch of different Tigers minor leaguers working out there. We saw Joe, we saw Burhan, we saw Owen Hall, we saw who else? Dawson Price, I think.
Dawson Price was down there. So I want to say that was just about it. We had maybe 5 or 6 guys down there training, and it was a blast to go through. I enjoyed it a lot. It's a really great facility with great coaches. And the best part is it's indoors. You have a dirt mound, you have Edgertronic, and you have a TrackMan and an in-house catcher. It's everything you can ask for in one spot. And training with that group of guys, it kind of sets the tone. And then you have some big leaguers in there training. And it's high-level guys training in a really cool spot in Oklahoma City. I don't think I'd probably train anywhere else. I've done the treads, I've done the drive lines, I've done the small backyard high school stuff. This seems like the perfect spot to go work, get your work in, and keep it going.
Nice. And yeah, I mean, we saw you've done a lot of work on your craft over the off season, but did you get to do anything fun that wasn't baseball related? Like you go on a trip or anything like that, get married?
No, I mean, for me, baseball is the job and baseball is the hobby. As crazy as that sounds, it's what I love to do. It doesn't feel like work. It's the only place I want to be is at the field, hanging out with the guys, throwing a baseball. And even when I'm just hanging out on a foam roller, just talking the talk, it's the best place to be. It doesn't feel like work at the end of the day. Now, traveling for me isn't anything. I don't love to do it. I like to kind of rest and recover because of season. We travel so much all the time. So I went down to Houston for a little bit to hang out with the family during the holidays, and then right back to it, training in Oklahoma City, enjoying the cold.
The cold. I'm sure it's slightly colder there, but probably, yeah. I don't know. Well, that's good. Yeah, I'm glad. We always talk about how, baseball people just like to talk about baseball.
This is always, us. Yeah, for us, it's like a second job, and we love doing this, and we can continue to do this. And but thanks so much for joining us. And I know that the Hogs have a good chance to win the national championship this year. I mean, do you feel? I mean, just as an alum aside, you feel pretty good about them. They're ranked number 4 right now. I was gonna say the schedule, that SEC schedule is just insane. Like this.
Yeah, it's murderer's row of teams for sure. But the craziest thing of going down there, training, being around those guys is you see them throwing their bullpens and getting their off-season work in. And it's a lot of like first, second, like high-end, top-tier college talent, high school talent that shows up on campus. I mean, that's even on the hitter side. So when you're throwing live ABs to guys down there, the college dudes are pretty locked in and could walk into a high A baseball team, double A team right now and play. And the arms you see, I mean, y'all see college stuff, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, Arkansas has, I think, 2 guys throwing 100 and maybe another 10 that are sitting 95 plus. It's unreal to see these guys go to work, and the pitching staff and coaching staff down there in Arkansas is, I don't think there's anyone better or anyone even close to them, to be completely honest with you. The staff down there is amazing. The facilities are the best. I can't say enough amazing things about Arkansas. It's my favorite place.
All right. Well, thanks again. And we look forward to Don seeing opening day in Toledo, which is, I believe, the 8th. I want to say. I'm trying to right now.
I think it's earlier than that.
Is it earlier than that? Okay. Yeah, I know, whether it's hopefully if you, wherever your road starts, it's warm, a little warmer. Yeah. I know right now.
March 28th.
It's March 20. Ooh. Yeah. So it's a 30. It's a nice balmy 38 degrees here in Metro Detroit. So,
love it.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'd rather be there playing baseball, I promise.
Oh, yeah. All right. Let me pause this here.